Morning, everyone. Welcome to the Wealthy Retailer Podcast for the week of March 25th. I'm your host, Dan Holman. Once again, have my main man from Road 55 Marketing, Rob Lawlisher. You're going to feed us some headlines, talk to us a little bit. How you going, Rob?
Not too bad, yeah. And those headlines just never stop, man. It doesn't matter what we say. Don't send them to us, but they keep coming, and it really is amazing when you think about it. That it's one vertical, but like every week there's so many different things, and I think it's pretty cool that every week we get to chat about all these different topics that. 1 week it's about cash, and the next week it's inventory, all the good stuff. But the headlines coming this week, Dan. I'll shut up and get to the headlines. Some good stories. We've got one talking about, really like hearing this, that store openings are outpacing closures in 2021. So, as we get into the rebuild here, story about the top 6 trends for boosting your e-commerce. Pretty cool there. And this is out of necessity at first. It talks about merchants collaborating together, for survival's sake. But I think there's a lot of good lessons that'll take you well out of that survival and then from surviving to thriving. So looking forward to your thoughts on that one. And 4 tips for choosing a SaaS solution, service as a software. For those of you who might not know what SaaS is, for your small business, for your shipping needs. So that'll be cool. And then another great retailer question, and your favorite topic, talk about cash and that. Yeah. So you ready to go there, sir?
Let's go. Let's have at her.
Right on. Okay, our first story comes from retaildive.com. And as I said, the good news headline of store openings are outpacing the closures in 2021 thus far. Dan, what were your thoughts here?
Yeah, Retail Dive. We certainly see a lot of headlines come out of Retail Dive. Love the team over there for some of the things that they put together. And in this specific article, they're talking about predictions or indicators that more stores will open this year than will close. And stats show current pacing at about 40% ahead of last year for openings. And the article goes on to talk about the categories that we're going to see some strong resurgence in. Okay. And fashion and beauty really is one that's key for us. And it may in fact take over from, where we saw home goods go in 2020. Apparel may regain its stature at the top. The other stores that we're going to see opening this year are going to be discount or price driven or discount focused type stores. And Retail Dive went on to talk about Dollar General and the growth or explosion of dollar stores. They're going to add another 300 to their mix. But for me, this really I love the idea that we're going to see apparel come back with a bit of a vengeance or a resurge as compared to home goods growth last year and the decline of apparel. However, I'm going to say in no way, shape, or form are we out of the woods here. Fashion retail, fashion apparel, technical apparel, footwear, they're going to continue, Rob, to see manufacturing, shipping, port delays. We really need to ride this wave out with using this, knowledge that Retail Dive is sharing today as, hey, just hang on a little bit longer. It's coming. If you're in apparel, that world is coming back to us. Right. And we're certainly seeing that it's been a bit of a softer start to 21 as compared to the norm. And certainly as 2020 finished up. And we know we're seeing retailers that would be overrun with their spring and summer merchandise today, champing at the bit to get that product. So we know there's been some manufacturing delays. We've seen some huge challenges out of some of the bigger, technical players. Patagonia is one that's just, they're playing catch up, and everybody's going to be in that place. And my advice for everyone is just ride this wave. Let's keep looking at where we can get product, look at where we can fill in for her, and really be replanning our September, sort of our Q4, our September through holiday business, as that's when we're really going to see, I believe, some resurgence.
Yep. So for all the existing retailers, Dan, with all these new store openings, Does that have any effect? Is that part of the challenge of like you say, the supply chain?
No, I don't think it is as much of an effect. There are a lot of vendors to go around. There's a lot of product to go around.
Okay.
We get caught up in our little independent retail world of buying from the same people all the time. And our biggest challenge, Rob, comes this year, not because there's a shortage of inventory, but a shortage of opportunity to go and see new products. We haven't been to a trade show. If you're in friends of ours in the South, you've maybe had a chance to go to a pop-up apparel market. Atlanta's done a little bit. Certainly, Magic did a little bit down in Florida. But for the most part, you're not doing a ton of, at show shopping. Even retailers here in our little bubble in Northern Alberta, they got an opportunity to go and see some new product in hotel rooms, but it's not the same as combing through a showroom, a trade show.
Right.
Looking at 1,000 vendors instead of the 10 that I know.
Well, it really supports too, some past, you talked about the mix and looking for those new opportunities, just constantly evaluating new potential suppliers that discover some hidden stars potentially, but also open up some new channels if you are struggling a little bit on that front. With these openings, interesting kind of, as a bit of a segue into our next story with entrepreneur.com. It talks about the top 6 trends for boosting your e-commerce. But one of the first things it zeroes in on is booming online competition.
Sure.
What were your thoughts on this story, Dan?
Yeah, certainly. These guys from entrepreneur.com shared these great 6 tips for boosting e-com sales. And I'm going to say that the tips they maybe come across as tips, but in some cases, warning flags.
Right.
In some cases, here are things that we need to pay attention to. And definitely, we've seen a rise in competition, as entrepreneurs stated, a boom in competition. And you need to be on the lookout for that rise in competition. We need to get ahead now with a fresh look at your website and your targeted ads. And how do we stay relevant in our consumer's mind, in our customer's mind? And so their sort of first tip is beware. There is a boost in competition or a boom in competition. And to combat that, you really need to take a look at what your website presentation looks like. Let's remember that this article, this heading was all about boosting my e-com presence or my e-com business. So let's look at what that is. I'm going through an exercise right now. We're looking at our website and saying, okay, where are we capturing? Where are we losing? How do we improve? And in the launch of our new CRS website, primarily it was driven by, we've got to be better because there is more competition out there. And that's the same for every single retailer out there, Rob. Their number 2 was sort of this changing consumer behavior. And I'm going to call it the resistant online shopper.
Okay.
The one we forced to go and shop online against their will is now pushing us to be better, have better one-to-one communications, delivering personalized experiences and a faultless customer experience. They are customer service. They do not want fault. They do not want errors. And personalization and big data are going to be key here in dynamically showing users what they're more likely to buy based on their navigational history or their previous purchases. I haven't been drinking yet. And so for us, it comes down to really understanding the analytics. How often do we talk about the science in a retail store? This is all about science, knowing what they're buying, what they've bought in the past, and showcasing products to them based on their behavioral habits. Number 3 was authenticity standards. I love that. Authenticity standards. The online world, as you know, Rob, is fraught with counterfeit stuff. I can buy a great Louis bag for $40. And jewelry and clothing is no different. Any designer product that can be made cheaply can look the part of, its true version.
Okay.
And we need to demonstrate as retailers a level of authenticity for our customers. this positive development for e-commerce gives everybody a great or greater understanding of authenticity. Buyers really, Rob, need to have some peace of mind that they're buying something authentic from you, and that it is not just simply, a cheap knockoff. Or, I'm going to say, for fashion apparel retailers that are living in the margin goods world and in fast fashion, simply relabeling someone else's product doesn't make it authentically yours. To make it yours, you've got to tell a story about it. Yeah. You've got to own that story, not simply cut somebody else's tag out to put yours in. That's not authentic. The authentic part comes in when we tell a story of why and how we've curated those products. Number 4 for them was customer fulfillment. Customers want their demands met with fulfillment in ecom, whatever their demands are. And think about, if you can't fulfill your customer's need, they're just simply going to go somewhere else. They have 1,000 choices at their fingertips here. It's not like they walked in your brick and mortar store and are a bit of a captured audience. You do have the ability to capture them, but you have to deliver on what their expectation is. And that really comes back to that service fulfillment, not the traditional or typical product fulfillment that we maybe talk about. Number 5, Rob, was brand building. I know this will kind of hit home for you as well. Your brand needs to reflect who you are. This maybe speaks a little bit to the above when we talk about authenticity, but really building a brand and exposing your brand that is you. The saving grace for every single indie retailer out there is that they cannot be copied when they're themselves, right? There is no one competing to be you. And that speaks to us needing to be sometimes a bit more expression driven when it comes to who we are, what our belief system is, what our value set is, so that people can tie directly to our brand. We follow brands like 10 Tree because of their social belief. For every shirt sold, they plant 10 trees. Look at Vans and Boggs, and these guys have some social messaging that is attractive for consumers to their brand. We need to be brand focused and building our brand constantly. And then the last thing was this identification of retention over acquisition. We talk a lot about what are our customer acquisition costs when it comes to online. And if it costs you 25 out of every $100 to get a customer, it's probably a lot more cost effective to keep a customer, and paying closer attention to what things I need to do to hold on to a customer. And I say this to retailers often, Rob. Once a customer becomes part of your entourage, okay, think about it as this entourage.
I like that, yeah.
Right? Yeah. It's our job to keep them engaged so they want to be part of our entourage. Think of that, entourage, this group of like-minded people that end up sort of following the path of one person. That's what retail is all about. We want to build an entourage. Honest to God, I haven't been drinking. We want to build this entourage of consumers that follow the path that we're leading them on. And that's about keeping people close to you and paying more attention to holding on to your customers versus acquiring new ones.
What hops in my mind is we've talked before about that, approaching an e-commerce store like a second brick and mortar location 100 miles down the road, and how much of this reads to, if you treat your digital presence almost like a second brick and mortar store, that you had no staff in serving customers as they came in, you did nothing to perpetuate your brand, your engagement, and all that. Pretty safe to say you wouldn't expect much success from that physical store. And you take so much of that, and especially with things like the onslaught of competition, and everyone's got the same widget. it's going to be those brands and that really set you apart from that. So right on.
It's your story. That's what sets you apart, and that's where there is no competition. People always want to debate, how do I compete with the big box? How do I compete with so and so? Well, they're not you. Number one, when you're authentically yourself, when you put yourself out there in all your glory, all your good and bad, no one can mimic that. No one can copy that. They can't compete with you at that level. And that's why independent is so successful when it comes to, being weighted against the big box. The only thing they can't do that we can is connect directly with our customers on this authentic level. So
right on. Hey, folks, reminder that this podcast is brought to you by Canadian Retail Solutions. They've been empowering retails across North America for over 30 years. And I'm going to stop right there for a moment, Dan. You mentioned it earlier. New website is up. A new path for people to come in and check out. Maybe share a couple things that you think folks would see when they head to retailbycrs.com.
Well, we really looked at restructuring this website to capture us, so that someone knows where they belong. If you're in retail, you'll go down the retail path. If you're in restaurant, you'll go down a restaurant path. If you're looking for retail coaching, retail guidance, retail education, it's a third pathway within that website. And so not only is it chock full of free, free, nothing's really free, but maybe give me your name and your phone number free.
Tons of videos, lots of good pieces on there.
Yeah, there's a lot of video content, of course, our podcasts and customer success stories and the things that we do every day. On the point of sale side, there are things that give you an overview of point of sale, not necessarily a specific platform, but point of sale in general, to make sure that you get the right platform. And listen, I don't have every solution for every retailer. And we have to start by what is the solution that a retailer needs, and then inch forward, not say, hey, I've got these 5 point of sale systems, pick one. It's, hang on a second, let's talk about you. Let's figure out a little bit more about you, and then we'll tell you which one is the best. And that may not be one that we sell and support.
Yeah. And I like that. You've started even with the retailer questions, just the open door policy of you got a question, shoot me an email, give us a call.
Yeah.
We'll start the conversation. And just as we were talking about in this previous story, it's building that relationship and just knowing that there's so many good options that you will have, but it all starts with, let's talk about you and your needs first, and we'll figure out that path. So folks, if you haven't yet, head to retailbycrs.com. Canadian Retail Solutions, they're there to make you better. So
it's our job to try to help make you better.
Go check it out. And hey, if you see a typo on there, it's probably Dan's fault, and you'll want to let him know about it. So send an email to Dan, and we'll get it fixed quickly. Hey, Dan?
Yeah. Typo would definitely be my fault. Yeah.
Awesome. Okay, our next story comes from yorkregion.com, and it focuses on collaboration. It's critical as the downtown Newmarket merchants. Like I said, their first goal obviously is they're looking to survive, but then immediately they want to thrive, right? So what jumped out at you in this story, Dan?
Well, how often have we referred to community over competition, or collaboration being more important than competition? And this is another example of a small town collaboration. Jennifer McLaughlin is the name of the owner of Cachet Supper Club in Newmarket, Ontario. She had to quickly react last year when her restaurant was closed early in the pandemic, and she counterpunched this pandemic onslaught. Loved it. She counterpunched it and launched Delivery. And Delivery is a flat fee pickup and delivery service app aimed at offsetting the crushing food courier delivery fees that we continue to hear about on a daily basis. Our first entrance into the restaurant world in that point of sale last year really showcased some of the biggest pains are the last mile of delivery. And it is, how do I get it from the restaurant to the consumer's home without giving up 30% on my, costing me 30%, which makes up a good portion of their operating dollars. Well, so Jennifer launches this app that is a flat fee pickup and delivery service that was aimed at offsetting those ever increasing courier delivery fees and putting product into customers' hands quickly. Convenience and speed, always going to be factors in someone's decision-making process, Rob. And food delivery for her was only the start. She's got several clientele, or a large clientele, across several verticals, including our favorite, retail. And it's how she's helping retailers overcome or satisfy one of their biggest challenges, which we've talked about lots, the last mile of delivery. And I loved in this article, there was a great quote from Jennifer that said, I can relate to all of my neighbors. She calls them neighbors. They are, in fact, her neighbors. She said, no one's business is the way it used to look. We all have to pivot to some degree and go back to basics. No one can afford to stand still and survive. And Jennifer has created something that's supporting her community, their businesses and her business. So it is about collaboration and how collaboratively, they're picking up small town Ontario and delivering a service that was not available to them, which I love.
Yeah,
Deliver
I love it, like, just so much of I love the line, the counter punch, right?
The counter punch, yeah.
There wasn't much sympathy for, you say poop happens, right?
And so here's the deal. Jennifer looks at this and says, hey, I've got a background in, pandemic response. I've got a background in logistics. How can I bring these two things together to help my community and myself? And, this is an example of someone that lives in consequence to others' success. You know how much we believe in service above self. And this is an example of where someone is reaping the benefit of creating something that helped her neighbors, that, helped her community. And you got to applaud that.
Yeah. I love that. Without a doubt, a ton of us did things in the survive mode and quickly, right? But I'm very hopeful that people take that understanding that, it was driven by survival, but you created something really cool, or you created some new initiatives, some new collaborations, and I liken it to, I've been a member of the Chamber of Commerce for a really long time, and you'd see it quite often. I'm coming to my first lunch because I need a sale, right? The boss sent me here. I got to meet people, and I need a sale this week, and well, sale didn't happen, and I'm not investing in that anymore. But the people who build those relationships, that community, are there all the time, ongoing. They're the ones who truly do thrive over time. So,
and those people that are successful, Rob, like in that chamber setting, too few retailers attend something like a chamber meeting or a business after 5, because there's in some cases solopreneurs, or they have this great excuse that they don't have time. But if you go and put yourself out there, you give before you get, you reap rewards. That guy that decided to go to the chamber luncheon for the first time to get a sale because his boss told him to go, was there to take, not to give.
Totally.
Right? You show up taking, there's not much left for you.
Well said. Hey, I got a business idea, Dan.
Okay.
We start an independent retail Chamber of Commerce after 5 babysitting service, where we will send in a temporary staffer to mind your store for an hour or two, so you can go network.
You can get out there.
Trusted salespeople. Okay, maybe that one won't fly, but I think the spirit of it is right. Okay, this last mile conversation, not going away, takes us into the next story. Forbes.com talking about sharing 4 tips to choosing a SaaS solution, that software as a service, for your small business shipping needs. So same topic, Dan. What are your thoughts here?
Well, Rob, we're barraged today with SaaS options, SaaS, software as a service, with a monthly subscription or software as a subscription. And those options, when it comes to fulfilling orders, are endless. There are tons and tons to choose. And choosing software for that process isn't any different than choosing the software to run your overall business. When you're choosing a point of sale system, it's not any different. You start by asking questions of yourself and then of others. Here are Forbes 4 tips in selecting a SaaS service for shipping or fulfilling your orders. And it really starts with assessing your fulfillment needs. The first question you're going to want to ask yourself is, what am I fulfilling? What are my fulfillment needs? Am I shipping 1 a day or 100 a day? And getting some level of scale will help you start to filter down on the 1,000 options there are out there for fulfilling orders. One of the other things that you want to make sure that in their number 2 was keep your carrier options open. One of the mistakes I've seen people make is choose a fulfillment center that doesn't have multiple delivery options.
Okay.
And thinking about the type of goods that you're selling, carrier options should vary. Many of us today are using Canada Post instead of, or in some cases, maybe in addition to, the 25 other delivery options that are available. So when you're looking at that software, really ask yourself, what are my carrier needs going to look like? Do I want to use just Canada Post? Do I want to use traditional courier, less than a trailer load type courier, UPS or FedEx or Purolator? And make sure that you're not locked down to using only one fulfillment option. Don't forget about returns. Number 3 on the Forbes list was don't forget about returns. Returns are a part of your business and need to be managed in a way that holds the customer close to you. Returns. Too many SaaS guys are creeping up that are trying to eliminate returns.
Okay.
By baiting customers to keep stuff that they don't want. Massive discounting because it's cheaper than sending it back. But at the end of the day, if a customer wants to return something, it's because they're not happy with the purchase. And your job as a retailer is to make customers happy first.
Right.
Not make money first. It's to make customers happy first. And so make sure when you're choosing that SaaS delivery option that you're really looking at, how does it handle returns? Every single return is in fact an opportunity to sell something to your customer. And then lastly on their list was not all software offers the same features. In a perfect world, Rob, we're going to have a solution that in just a few clicks does everything we expect it to do. And that's just not true. You really need to understand what are the critical components for me so that I can get the feature sets out of the software that I want that allow me to fulfill quicker and go home earlier. I stole that last line out of the article. I want to fulfill my orders faster and go home earlier.
Yeah.
Because it kind of hit home for it. That's what I want to happen. Yeah. I don't want to spend 4 hours fulfilling orders after my day is done in my brick and mortar store.
Work smarter, not harder.
Yes, work smarter, not harder.
Yep.
And look to these options to do the first thing they need to do is save you time. Time is the most valuable thing we have. So we want to make sure that we're choosing a solution that does in fact save us time, which saves money.
Yeah. Which I'm sure at the very beginning might be a tough decision, because I would assume at the beginning you've probably got more time than money. So you're kind of playing that game, but something to be mindful of, I guess, in the spirit of growth. You're going to get here eventually. So what's your plan? And time is at the top of that list.
Yep.
Oh, that was good stuff. Okay. Well, we've talked lots about questions here, Dan. They keep rolling in, and like I said, here's a good one that I can't wait to hear your thoughts on. Tell us about this week's question.
This week's question came from Stacy. She said, Hi, Dan. I listen to almost all of your podcasts. Yes. Love you, Stacy. And you talk a lot about management one, helping with cash flow. How big does a retailer need to be to get this service? And can you give me some more information on exactly what the service does? Well, I have to tell you, Rob, first off, ever since this launch of this segment in the podcast came up, I've been dying for this question to come. I'm not really that hard sell guy. So Stacy, I love
Stacy for the win.
Stacy for the win, man. I've been hoping for this question. And yes, Stacy's right. We do talk a lot about the Management One, what I call the Management One Advantage, a fair bit on the podcast. They are one of our premier partners. Love that team to death. Love what they're doing for retail. And I believe we talk about it a lot, Rob, because I believe so strongly in merchandise planning and the requirement for it to be one of the key tools in driving a retail business forward.
Okay.
So what is merchandise and retail planning? Ask any 10 retailers or probably any 10 retail experts what merchandise planning and what is merchandise planning, and you're probably going to get slightly different answers. We define merchandise planning as the systems define outcomes, the systematic approach to maximizing a retailer's profitability, cash flow, most important, and return on investment through accurate sales and inventory forecasting. And when put into action, merchandise planning increases our profitability by maximizing the sales potential and minimizing losses that come from two big things: stockouts, I didn't have enough, and markdowns, I bought too much and had to mark it down. And in order for a retailer to really do this, it's vital that we track, measure, and respond to customer votes. And votes, the purchases, the yes, the credit card, we measure that vote, Rob, by classification.
Okay.
Classifications are an assembly of products that sell on a similar curve. So we think about classifications like tops, denim, candles, bottoms, accessories, mirrors, prints and mirrors, tabletop, footwear may be broken down by sneakers. There's a million ways for us to look at a class structure, and a well-defined classification structure is the key to gaining the insights needed to take full advantage of your store's sales potential. The queen shops in your store by class, not by brand. And the sooner retailers give in to this proven fact and start building and responding to their businesses in this way, the sooner they'll achieve the financial results that they're longing for. Okay. And the other question, that Stacy asked was, how big does a retailer need to be?
Yeah, great question.
It is a good question. And certainly, as we talk about, not all software fits, not, all retailers, and certainly this may not be the case at all, or in this instance at all. But I'm going to say, how big does a retailer need to be? The truth is, it's not about size. Size does not matter. I think we've heard that before.
Not touching that one.
Size does not matter. But Rob, what matters the most is that we build a structure that supports and fosters growth in a business. And understanding a retailer's personal first and then their business vision allows us to take this critical component in and build from there as a starting point. Size really is irrelevant. I'll tell you, the smallest retailer I've ever started working with, was right around $200,000 in annual sales.
Yeah.
So a very small retailer. That same retailer today is now approaching 2.5 million with an
Nice.
in annual sales. And that came from us first understanding the vision and the structure and the desire and saying, okay, how do we grow from here? What's our goal? Yeah. This same retailer that I'm talking about was told by another retail, I'm going to use the word consultant, even though I don't like it, another retail consultant, come back and see me when you grow up. How demoralizing.
Why you want to be part of that story?
A freaking retail. Well, now here we are, part of that story, where a retailer's grown more than 10x, is an avid, and a very active retailer in lots of doors now, doing more things than they ever thought possible. But it came, one of the tools used in this growth was our Management One and merchandise intelligence plan and where we were headed.
And really a conversation of not where they were, but where they wanted to go.
It doesn't matter where you are today or where you've come from. Rob, it drives me crazy to listen to the stories of yesteryear, man.
Yeah.
It's dead. It's gone. It's over. Move forward. Let's look forward. I don't care how it compares to last year or the year before. I want to know how it compares to where I'm going. We set out on a trip, brother. We put a dot on the map and we say, that's where we're going. And we figure out how to get there. And in retail, it takes the same persistence. I put a dot on the map and I figure out how to get there.
Yeah.
And it's not always as simple as,
and it's not a straight line.
Merchandise planning up.
It's not a straight line either.
It's not a straight line, man. It's up and down and sideways. Yeah. It's like there's 14 detours on this path to $100,000 in sales growth. It's crazy, but that's what it takes. And it takes a level of objectivity in the business. And what we bring in merchandise planning for a retailer, two things, most important things: objectivity. I didn't buy it. I don't have an emotional attachment to it. I can look at it and consider all of the facts objectively. And accountability. I'm here to help you grow the business. I'm going to hold you accountable to that growth, that vision that you shared with me. I bring objectivity and accountability inside that plan. And I say but everybody in the Management One family, that's their purpose. To bring a level of objectivity and accountability that fosters retail growth. Growth for us comes with the measure of cash, not white paper profit. It comes by growing cash in hand, cash in bank. And the question that Stacy, I expected her to ask that she didn't ask, Rob, really is the third most common fear for a retailer when they get started with planning. It's cost. And I'm going to reiterate, cost should never be a fear. The fear in today's retail world comes from the absence of a plan to get you to that next level. That's where fear should be. Retailers can implement a solid, cash-driven merchandise plan for mere pennies on the item they buy. And I share this with a lot of retailers, Rob. Your planning costs were $1,000 this month. I just throw a number out there, but you bought 10,000 items. It was the pennies on that item that you bought that gave you the guidance to buy it, the confidence, the strategy, the action that needs to come from that. So how much does it cost is always a fear-based question, a fear that they can't afford it, when in reality, the fear comes in the absence of having a plan. You should expect a 3 to 5 time return on any expense that you have going out of your business as it relates to planning that growth. And there's not a vendor in your store that's giving you a 3 to 5 time return on your cash.
Right on.
I don't give a shit about your cash. We do. Merchandise planning only cares about cash.
Dan and cash will be your new best friend. Give him a call. Speaking of that, Dan, there's got to be other questions out there. What kind of questions do you think retailers have, and what topics can they reach out to you about? And
listen,
how do they
there's no
do it?
topic, Rob, is off limits. We've gotten questions about metrics, about payroll, about rent. We've talked about retail shrinkage. We've talked about key themes for going forward. We've talked about a couple of, on the podcast, 2 different sort of what I call pathways. One that's a bit inspirational. What should I be looking for? What should I pay attention to? And then the metric driven. This is how you measure success in your business. And any one of those questions is fair game. Choosing a POS system, we've had questions. I can go back. We've got about 6 questions sort of that are in the backlog of getting on the podcast that we've already answered. If you have a question, it doesn't matter what it's about. If you're a retailer and you have a question that you don't know the answer to, or you think you don't know the answer or want a different opinion, send an email to dan@thewealthyretailer.com. I promise you'll get an immediate, a quick, a fast personal response from me. And if appropriate, and with your permission, we'll share it on the podcast. I mean, Stacy, I asked her right away when we talked about this. I, of course, called her. I sent her an email and said, love to book 15 minutes with you. Let's just chat. Much easier than the keyed response. I'm not a great typer. And so we did chat. And I asked her if I could share this on the podcast.
Nice.
Shout
out Stacy.
Yeah. She was good with it. She was cool with it. So
good stuff. Well, folks, if you haven't yet, head to retailbycrs.com. New website. So on that email, we say check it out, and any feedback appreciated by all means. There you'll want to head over to the newsletter. You want to sign up. You want to get the weekly newsletter where we include the links to all the stories we just discussed, as well as a few more. And some of those are this week's story about local company Friesen Brothers entering the Edmonton market with a very innovative grocery store. And Dan, we record earlier in the day, but I will offer this. They have beer at their grocery store, so maybe you and I go have a visit there one day. So definitely check that out. A story about talking about VR in 2021, all the things we'll be seeing much more of, and as it relates to shopping, attending meetings, digital events, and more. In small towns, retail can and in fact is an economic development driver. And what's great to see out of this story is economic developers are paying much more attention to that fact and realizing what role retailers can play in the economic development of their community. So good to see that.
Yeah.
And fun little story about an entrepreneur starting up like this. She took her $3,400 tax refund and started a great little, I think it's still a bit of a side business, but it's generating about $12,000 a month in sales.
Totally. Yeah, it's a great side hustle.
Yeah, that was cool. So great job this week, Dan. Any closing thoughts?
No, guys, if you haven't subscribed to this podcast, you can find it on all your favorite podcast platforms, Google, Spotify, Apple, whatever the other ones are. You can find it. You can catch us on YouTube. Same thing. Just search out The Wealthy Retailer. Anywhere you search online, and you're going to find us there. Thank you so much for joining us, and can't wait to chat again next week.